10,000 knights against 35,000 horse archers. August 955. Augsburg. You think you know medieval warfare? Armored Germans beating pagans? Simple story, moving on. But the numbers alone hide something darker. The Magyars had ravaged Europe for 50 years. 50 raids, 37 victories. From the Atlantic to Constantinople. They burned Rome, they reached the Pyrenees. They made Byzantium pay tribute for 15 years. When they showed up at your city walls, you either paid or died. Except one man refused both. Otto of Saxony built 8 legions from enemies who hated each other, marched them through broken terrain in August heat, and turned the Lech River red for 3 days straight. The pursuit was methodical. The executions were public. The survivors went home without ears. This is not a legend about holy lances or divine intervention. This is what happens when heavy cavalry meets light horse archers on terrain where arrows mean nothing and discipline means everything. The Magyars cross the Carpathian Mountains from the steppes near the Black Sea. They are not settling, they are hunting. Finn-Ugric language roots, Turco-Tartar war tactics, composite bows that outrange anything in the west. They take the Carpathian Basin in 895 and immediately start probing. 899, northern Italy. They hit Treviso, Vicenza, Verona, Brescia, Bergamo, Milan. They defeat Prince Braslav of Pannonian Croatia. 901, they return to Italy. 902, they annihilate Moravia. The entire kingdom ceases to exist. Between 900 and 907, they destroy 3 major East Frankish armies. 907 at Breslau-Augsburg, they obliterate the Bavarians. The German lands, France, Italy, all open. No unified resistance, just scattered lords paying tribute or running. He retreats. They plunder at will. The Magyars continue through Burgundy, then into Lombardy, killing Rudolf II's Italian supporters at Brescia and Verona. 924, another Magyar force invades Saxony, defeats Henry again, but they capture an Arpad prince near Pfalz-Werla. Henry negotiates. 9 years of peace for annual tribute. He uses those 9 years to build something the Magyars have never faced. A network of fortified strongholds with infantry garrisons, and heavy cavalry trained to charge through arrow storms without breaking formation. 926, while the truce holds, the Magyars raid Swabia, Alsace, Luxembourg, all the way to the Atlantic. 927, they enter Rome, impose tribute on Tuscany and Tarento. Between 900 and 970, researchers count 45 raids across Europe, maybe 47 depending on sources. 37 end in success. Only 8 fail: 901, 913, 933, 943, 948, 951, 955, 970. Notice 933. If you value documented medieval warfare and tactical evolution like this, subscribe. It is the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you are hearing this from. Also, this script is researched and factual using sources from Widukind of Corvey's Res Gestae Saxonicae, written 967 to 968, which provides eyewitness accounts from Saxon nobles who fought at Lechfeld, and Gerhard of Augsburg's Vita Sancti Wodorici, written 982 to 993 by a man who served Bishop Ulrich and witnessed the siege firsthand. We also cross-reference with Hungarian chronicles, the Annales Sangalenses Majoris, and Charles Bolus's 2006 academic monograph published by Ashgate. Now back to the information. The Western force tries to outflank Saxony, gets defeated near Gotha by combined Saxon and Thuringian troops. The main army besieges Merseburg. Henry meets them with something new: heavy cavalry charging in unbroken lines, hitting the Magyars before they can regroup, before the arrow volleys can break German formation. The Magyars lose. Sources claim 36,000 casualties, probably inflated, but the defeat is real. The Magyars shift focus south to the Byzantine Empire, raid in 934 and 942, reach Constantinople's walls, extract tribute, but Henry has shown the blueprint: heavy cavalry, discipline. Frontal assault before the Magyars can deploy their feigned retreat tactics. 953 to 955, civil war. His son Ludolf, Duke of Swabia, rebels. His son-in-law, Conrad the Red, Duke of Lorraine, joins the revolt. Count Arnulf of Bavaria, leader of the powerful Luitpolding clan, turns against him. Even bishops show themselves not a little irresolute, sending envoys to both parties according to Widukind. The Magyars watch. They have been paid by rebellious German lords before. They see opportunity. A Magyar force of 50,000, this number from contemporary sources, possibly exaggerated but indicating a massive army, raids through Franconia and Bavaria. They cross the Rhine at Worms, with help from Conrad, move into Lorraine, northeast France, hit Reims and Chalon, push into Burgundy, then down into Lombardy. They return home safely. The raid proves German disunity. The Magyars learn the routes, the terrain, the weak points. They plan something bigger? Days later, Otto receives word from his brother Henry, Duke of Bavaria. The Hungarians are infiltrating across borders in scattered groups. They are planning war, but Otto's position has changed. Conrad has made peace. Ludolf has reconciled. The rebellion is over. The lords who fought each other now see a common threat. Suhr commands a 3rd division. This is not a raid. They bring siege engines. They bring infantry impressed into service. They average 11 miles per day moving the siege train. The swift columns ride ahead, strip forage between the Lech and Iller rivers, denying German forces supplies. They burn and plunder. The target is Augsburg, a border city of Swabia, sitting at the intersection of 2 ancient Roman roads. Control Augsburg, control southern Germany. The city is damaged from a rebellion against Otto in 954. Walls are dilapidated. The garrison is small. But Augsburg has Bishop Ulrich, 65 years old, been bishop for 32 years, connected to the Dukes of Alemannia and the Ottonian dynasty. Gerhard writes that Ulrich orders his soldiers not to fight in the open, but to reinforce the main south gate. He rides out on the first day of attack, dressed in ecclesiastical robes, encouraging defenders with the 23rd Psalm. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. The fiercest fighting happens at the eastern gate. The Magyars suspect it is weakly defended due to limited access. They storm it in large numbers. Ulrich's garrison holds. They want to take it by sudden assault. It fails. They settle in for a siege. But Augsburg sends messengers west. Otto is raising an army. He initially considers Bopfingen to the northeast, but Magyar movements toward the Iller indicate they might turn north into Franconia, like 954. Otto deploys arriving Bavarians and Swabians to guard Danube crossing points above Ulm. Below Ulm, the river is too wide to cross without ferries. Early August, Magyar scouts pull back to Lechfeld plain below Augsburg. Otto's scouts discern Augsburg is the real objective. The Magyars want to fight Otto's relief army on the open Lechfeld. Perfect terrain for horse archers. Otto crafts a plan. The cities of Ulm, Donauwörth, Augsburg form a triangle. Ulm bottom left, Augsburg bottom right, Donauwörth at the top. Magyars expect Otto to march northeast to Donauwörth, then turn south to Augsburg. Open terrain. Death zone for heavy cavalry. Otto refuses the bait. August 8, he crosses to the Danube's south bank, leads his army east along the old Roman road connecting Ulm to Augsburg via Reisensburg, 15 miles that day. They camp beyond Reisensburg as the sun sets. 3 Bavarian legions led by Duke Henry's officers. Henry himself struck down by illness that will kill him soon. 4th Legion, Franconians under Conrad the Red. 5th Legion, the Royal Legion, the largest. Otto's Saxons and Thuringians, thousands of chosen soldiers, the king protected by dense columns, the holy lance carried before him, the relics that allegedly holds a nail from Christ's crucifixion. 6th and 7th Legions, Swabians under Bertrand III, Duke of Swabia, married to Hedwig, daughter of Henry, Otto's brother. 8th Legion, rearguard, 1,000 chosen soldiers skilled in arms. They also guard the baggage train, considered the safest position. This assumption will cost them. Otto leads them through difficult rugged terrain, avoiding open ground, staying under tree cover to deny Magyar archers clear shots. Composite bows effective up to 500 meters. Optimal killing range, 200 to 500 meters, where volleys rain down like hail. Inside 200 meters, archers shift to individual point-blank shots, less efficient. Inside 50 meters, hand-to-hand combat, where lightly armored Magyars have no advantage against German mail and plate. Slow, careful, maintaining formation. The Magyars watch from their camp on the east bank. Then they move. A force of Magyars crosses the Lech upstream, rides west along the opposite bank, unseen. They circle behind the German column, cross the river again, fall on the rear. The 8th Legion hears them coming. Great noise and fury. Arrows thick. The rearguard fights, but they are separated from the main column, exposed on open ground. The Magyars overrun them, men slain, prisoners taken, the entire baggage train captured. The 7th Legion, Swabians, turns to help. Arrows hit them in flank. Very many men slain. They break. The 6th Legion, more Swabians, same result. 3 legions down. The rear of Otto's army is collapsing. Conrad is bold by nature, sound in judgment, invincible on foot and horseback, according to Widukind, beloved by his comrades. Conrad takes his legion, all veteran heavy cavalry, and charges. Not a scattered pursuit, a formed line. They hit the plundering Magyars while they are occupied with captured supplies. The Magyars are dismounted, vulnerable. Conrad's cavalry shatters them. He recovers prisoners, snatches back the baggage, kills the Magyar detachment to the last man, returns to Otto bearing enemy standards. The threat at the rear is eliminated. The king surrounded by dense columns. Bavarian legions in front. The terrain is still broken, still denying Magyars the open field they need. Otto orders the advance. Henry the Fowler showed them at Merseburg 22 years earlier. Charge before the Magyars can deploy feigned retreat. Give them no room to regroup. The German heavy cavalry moves forward, shields up, lances down. 200 to 500 meters, the death zone. Germans take casualties. Arrows find gaps in mail, strike horses, but the formation holds. 100 meters, Magyars shift to point-blank shots. Less effective, 50 meters. The lines collide. The Germans fight hand-to-hand, no room for shoot-and-run tactics. Boksu feigns a retreat with part of his force, the classic Magyar tactic. Otto's men ignore it. Discipline holds. No pursuit. The German line maintains formation and keeps pressing. The feigned retreat becomes a real retreat. Magyars break. They flee east toward the Lech River. He sends messengers in every direction. Local forces east of the Lech, Duke Boleslav, with a second Bohemian legion at Regensburg, nobles of Carinthia under Otto's control since 952. Orders are clear. Kill them all. Do not let them return next year. Otto himself pursues to the Lech, then breaks off. The Magyars are scattered, exhausted, trying to cross rivers in full spate. German forces hunt them. Some Magyars seek refuge in nearby villages, their horses worn out. Widukind writes they were surrounded and burnt to death within the walls. Local inhabitants either kill them or point out hiding places when German troops arrive. The pursuit continues August 11th and 12th. The flooding slows the Magyars, allows German troops operating from nearby fortifications, Henry the Fowler's defensive network built in the 920s and 30s, to kill almost all fleeing Hungarian soldiers. Common soldiers are either executed immediately or sent back to their ruling Prince Taxny missing ears and noses. The mutilation is deliberate, a message that these men tried to raid the German kingdom and failed, but the leaders receive special treatment. Bulsu, Lel, Sur, all three captured by Bohemian troopers, according to Annales Sangalenses Mayores. They are handed to Duke Henry of Bavaria, Otto's brother. Henry takes them to his residence in Regensburg. They are hanged publicly within days. The Bavarians and their allies take no prisoners among the exalted except for these three, and they do not last long. By ordering the bloody execution of leaders and rejecting customary prisoner exchange, Otto displays his intention to settle the issue once and for all, writes the Hungarian military journal Honvédelem in August 2020. German casualties upward of 3,000 killed, including Conrad the Red, who opens his mail vest in summer heat and takes an arrow through the throat. Hungarian casualties approximately 5,000 warriors killed in the battle itself, according to sources, but the three-day pursuit likely doubles or triples that. The 25,000-strong Magyar army is virtually destroyed. Contemporary sources claim very few made it home. The defeat is catastrophic. One of Otto's allies, the Bishop of Cremona, claims the victory left the Hungarians so cowed they would not dare to mutter. Hungarian historian Gyula Christo calls it a catastrophic defeat in his historical analyses. Defending the homeland in the Carpathian Basin, Otto decides against invasion. He has no need. The psychological impact is complete. The Magyars who survived carry the message home. Fajs, the Grand Prince who ordered the 955 campaign, is dethroned. Taxny takes power. The Magyars completely cease all campaigns westward after 955. Not a single raid. The 970 raid into Byzantine territory is the last gasp, between 899 and 970, 45 to 47 raids. 82.5% success rate, then silence. 7 years. February 2, 962, Pope John XII crowns Otto Holy Roman Emperor in Rome. This marks the foundation of what will become the Holy Roman Empire of the German nation, lasting until 1806. The adjunct Roman originates with Otto II. Holy is added in the 12th century by Frederick Barbarossa. Of the German nation does not come until modern times, but the seed is planted at Lechfeld. Before Lechfeld, the German lands are fractured kingdoms, duchies fighting each other, Magyar raids exploiting every weakness. After Lechfeld, a unified German kingdom under strong central authority. Before Lechfeld, the Magyars are Europe's dominant military force, the Vikings of the East, pagans who raid at will. After Lechfeld, they settle, convert to Christianity under Duke Giza in the 970s, establish the Kingdom of Hungary in the year 1000 under King Stephen. The battle is viewed as symbolic. Knightly heavy cavalry, which will define European warfare in the High Middle Ages, defeats nomadic light cavalry that characterized early medieval warfare in Central and Eastern Europe. If you value researched military history and tactical analysis like this, subscribe. Comment which city you are watching from. This information comes from primary sources. Widukind's Resgestai Saxonicae, available in the Monumenta Germaniae Historica edition published by Paul Hirsch and Hans Eberhard Lohmann in 1935, English translation by Raymond Wood in his 1949 dissertation at University of California, Los Angeles, and Gerhard's Vita Sancti Ulderici, published between 982 and 993. Modern critical edition by Walter Berschen and Angelika Heza, published by Winter Verlag in 2020. We also reference the New Cambridge Medieval History compiled by Timothy Reuter in 1995, and Charles Bolus's comprehensive study, The Battle of Lechfeld and its Aftermath, published by Routledge in 2006. Now back to the aftermath. Within 20 years, they go from terror of Europe to Christian kingdom. Prince Geza, who rises to power between 972 and 997, seeks Christian priests from Rome, not Byzantium. His son Stephen becomes king in 1000, receives a crown from the Pope, establishes a national church independent of the Holy Roman Empire. Monasteries and cathedrals are constructed across Hungary. Stephen defends the kingdom from German takeover attempts. For his efforts and example, he is later canonized as Saint Stephen of Hungary. The Magyar language becomes and remains the official language of Hungary. Historian Peter Sugar writes in his 1994 History of Hungary that, but for the battle at Lechfeld, Magyar might have been the language of much of Western Europe. 16th century, the Ottoman Turks push north, attempt to capture Vienna, expand Muslim faith into Europe. Hungary stands in the way. Hungarian armies fight the Ottomans at places like the Siege of Belgrade in 1456, where John Hunyadi leads the defense. The Battle of Mohacs in 1526, where Hungary is defeated but buys time for the rest of Europe. The Hungarians become what they once threatened to destroy, a Christian bulwark. 3,000 German dead, 5,000 Magyar dead in battle, maybe 10,000 total counting the pursuit and executions. Lel, Bulsu, Sur hanging from gallows in Regensburg, the survivors stumbling home without ears, without noses, carrying news that the raids are over. 50 years of terror ending on a floodplain in Bavaria where heavy cavalry crashed through light horse archers and discipline defeated mobility. Otto's victory at Lechfeld secures his kingdom, allows him to revive the Holy Roman Empire, creates a new political order in Western Europe. The battle demonstrates that nomadic steppe tactics alone cannot overcome fortified defensive networks combined with trained heavy cavalry. The model spreads. By the High Middle Ages, every European kingdom builds castles, trains knights, develops the feudal military system that will dominate warfare until gunpowder changes everything. The Magyar composite bow is superior to Western bows in range and power, but it requires years of training, open terrain, and the ability to retreat and regroup. Western heavy cavalry requires different training, formation discipline, lance charges, close combat. After Lechfeld, European kingdoms invest heavily in armor, horses, and knight training. The tournament becomes a training ground. Chivalric codes develop around mounted combat. The castle and the knight become symbols of European power. Otto's victory is framed as Christian triumph over pagan invaders. The holy lance he allegedly carries into battle becomes a coronation relic. Bishop Ulrich of Augsburg is canonized in 993 by Pope John XV, the first saint officially canonized by Rome rather than local authority. The ceremony happens on a Lateran synod where the Vita Sancti Ulderici is read aloud. The assembly recommends veneration of Ulrich to bishops and abbots of Gaul and Germany. Ulrich becomes patron saint of Augsburg, of pilgrims, of the dying, of weavers, invoked for many illnesses and against rat and mouse plagues. An Ulrich cross and Ulrich waters are thought to protect users. Ulrich is usually portrayed with a fish in iconography. His grave in St. Afra's church becomes a pilgrimage site. His remains are transferred in 1187 to the newly constructed St. Ulrich Cathedral where pilgrims still visit. The German chronicles of the battle emphasize divine intervention. Witteken writes that Otto called the Magyars enemies of God and man, enemies of Christ before the battle. The Holy Lance symbol of Ottonian Empire represents the emperor's authority in military, political, and religious spheres. The battle is cast as holy war, Christian civilization against pagan barbarism. This framing influences how Europe views itself for centuries. Christendom united against external threats, whether Magyar, Viking, or later Muslim. Witteken's account mentions the fast observed in camp the night before battle, the oath sworn, the deliberate choice of terrain to neutralize Magyar advantages. Otto's speech to his troops, according to Witteken, focuses not on divine help, but on practical advantage. As we all know, they fight almost without any armor, and what is our greatest relief without the help of the Lord? The speech continues, we rather want to die in glory than being beaten by our enemies, taken away in servitude, or even be strung up like feral animals. These are words meant to steel men for a fight where discipline matters more than faith. The three-day hunt, the systematic killing, the public executions in Regensburg, all designed to send a message that Magyar raids will not be tolerated, that leaders who order invasions will hang, that survivors will carry visible marks of defeat. The missing ears and noses serve as walking proof that Germany can defend itself. The 14th century Chronicon Pictum, written by Marci de Calt in Latin, tries to picture Lel as a hero defiant even in captivity. Legend grows around the horn of Lechfeld. Lel allegedly uses his horn to kill Conrad the Red before his own execution. The story is almost certainly invented to salvage some honor from catastrophe. The historical record says Conrad dies in battle from an arrow through the throat after opening his armor in summer heat. But legends matter. They show how cultures process trauma. Modern Hungarian historians acknowledge Lechfeld as turning point, but emphasize that it was not a crushing defeat of Hungarian statehood. Otto was not able to chase the army and extend the battle to Hungarian lands, writes the Hungarian Military Journal. The defeat shook the Western Hungarian tribes, but had no significant effect on the Hungarian armies settled in the Carpathian Basin. The leaders executed, Lel, Bulcsú, Sur, were all from Western Hungary, not Arpad dynasty core. Their deaths remove rivals to central authority. Saxony consolidates power after Fajos is deposed. The Magyar state survives and transforms. Their composite bows and horse archer tactics make them nearly unbeatable on open ground. They defeat armies vastly larger than themselves by mobility and missile fire. They strike fast, retreat faster, never allowing enemy to close. The feigned retreat draws pursuers into death zones where volleys of arrows destroy cohesion. Then, the real attack comes from flanks and rear. It works for 50 years against fragmented Western European kingdoms. Build fortifications so raiders cannot move freely. Train heavy cavalry to charge through arrow storms without breaking. Create a network of strongholds that can launch coordinated responses. Wait for the Magyars to commit to siege or open battle, then crush them with weight and discipline. Otto inherits and perfects this system. Lechfeld is where theory becomes reality. He forces the Magyars to attack his prepared formations rather than using mobility to encircle and harass. When the Magyars do attack the rearguard successfully, Otto has reserves ready. Conrad's counterattack eliminates the threat before it can spread. The main engagement happens on ground, where Magyar horse archers cannot maintain distance, cannot regroup for feigned retreats, cannot use their superior mobility. The German heavy cavalry crashes into them at optimal range and stays there, grinding them down in close combat where armor and weight matter more than speed. Winning a single engagement means nothing if the enemy escapes to raid again next year. Otto understands this. The messengers he sends, the coordinated pursuit by local forces, the use of flooding rivers to trap fleeing Magyars, these are marks of strategic thinking beyond battlefield tactics. He wants annihilation, not victory. He gets it. The few Magyars who make it home carry news that changes Magyar policy forever. Widukind writes that the destruction of the Hungarian army continued on August 11th and 12th, when heavy rainfall and flooding allowed German troops operating from nearby fortifications to kill almost all fleeing Hungarian soldiers. If these had not been in place, it is very likely the Hungarians could have completed an orderly retreat once floodwaters receded, and the Battle of Lechfeld would have remained a draw, writes Wikipedia's analysis based on modern scholarship. The fortifications, castles, walled towns, defended river crossings, built over 2 decades give Germans a systematic advantage. Raiders who might escape across empty land are caught between fortified positions. Local forces sally out, attack while Magyars are vulnerable, crossing flooded rivers, finish what the main army started. The coincidence is used for propaganda. God chose this day for Christian victory over pagan invaders. Otto's army proclaims him emperor on the battlefield, but the official coronation waits 7 years because political consolidation takes time. The symbolic victory is immediate. The practical empire building requires treaties, alliances, further campaigns. October 955, Otto wins another decisive victory over the Slavs at Recknitz. The pair of great victories over pagan Eastern peoples makes possible further spread of Christianity into regions outside its grip. By 962, Otto has enough authority that Pope John XII crowns him Holy Roman Emperor in St. Peter's Basilica. The act unites kingdoms of Germany and Italy into the newly constituted Holy Roman Empire. The battle demonstrates that Western European military systems can defeat steppe nomads, that fortification and heavy cavalry combined create nearly unbeatable defense. This becomes the model for dealing with future nomadic invasions. When the Mongols arrive in the 13th century, they encounter similar defensive networks and have to adapt their tactics. The Magyar raids prepared Europe for later threats by forcing development of systematic defensive military infrastructure. The German casualties at Lechfeld, 3,000 killed, represent significant loss for an 8,000-man army. Otto loses Conrad the Red, his son-in-law, one of his most important allies, a veteran commander beloved by troops. The Bavarians and Swabians, who make up first 3 legions, suffer heavily in initial Magyar rear attack. These are not replaceable professional soldiers, they are nobility and their retinues. Each death impacts political alliances and regional power structures. Otto distributes lands and titles to Bavarian and Carinthian nobles who assisted him, using patronage to solidify support, but he cannot fully replace what was lost. 5,000 warriors killed in battle, perhaps 10,000 total with pursuit and executions. Out of a 25,000-man army is 40% losses at minimum. For a nomadic society where every warrior represents years of training in horseback archery and tactical coordination, these losses cannot be replaced quickly. The execution of Lel, Bulksu, and Sur removes military leadership. The public nature of the executions, hanging in Regensburg, a major city, humiliates the Magyar military tradition. The mutilations of common soldiers, missing ears and noses, create visible reminders of defeat that cannot be hidden. What does not get discussed enough in the chronicles is the psychological impact. For 50 years, Magyar warriors are nearly invincible. They raid from Spain to Constantinople, they make kingdoms pay tribute, they defeat major armies, then one battle destroys their reputation. The survivors return home defeated, mutilated, with news that their tactics no longer work, that Western European kingdoms have adapted, that future raids will meet fortified networks and disciplined heavy cavalry. The decision by Magyar leadership to end Western campaigns is pragmatic. They cannot win anymore. The risk outweighs reward. Prince Geza in the 970s and King Stephen in 1000 used Christianity to integrate Hungary into European political systems, to establish trade relationships, to secure recognition as legitimate kingdom rather than pagan threat. The Battle of Lechfeld forces this transformation by making the old ways impossible. The exact battle site within that plain is less certain, but the region remains associated with the battle. In the 19th century, as Imperial Germany develops and military history gains prestige, the Battle of Lechfeld is elevated to national historical event. The phrase Battle of Lechfeld is born in that era, according to a Hungarian scholar published in Hungarian Conservative in January 2024. This reflects increased prestige of army and military history in Imperial Germany, where historical events like the great victory that founded the German Empire in the Middle Ages are eagerly researched. Special emphasis is placed on regaining of eastern border region of the empire, Ostmark, after 955. Secular commemorations focus on Otto and German unification. Ecclesiastical commemorations focus on St. Ulrich and Christian triumph. Pan-German commemorations emphasize national destiny. Regional commemorations emphasize local defense of Augsburg. These different framings show how one battle can serve multiple narratives depending on who tells the story. It is one of the most decisive and historic defeats in Hungarian history, but also one of the least discussed Wright's European History blog, an analysis of Hungarian historical memory. The location and date provide indication of why it gets less notice. The battle takes place deep in Bavaria, closer to Berlin than Budapest, 550 kilometers west of Hungary's current western border. What were Hungarians doing fighting so far west? At the time, Hungarian lands are fluid. During first half of 10th century, Hungarians sweep across most of Western Europe. But after Lechfeld, those Western ambitions end forever. The battle marks the moment when any hope Hungarians may have had to extend conquests further westward ends. It also marks end of half-century, where Hungarians roam at will across Central and Western Europe, ravaging countryside while gaining ferocious reputation. Modern Hungarian historians like Gyula Christou acknowledge the defeat was catastrophic, but note that Hungarian statehood survived and transformed. The shift from nomadic raiding culture to settled Christian kingdom happens within 2 generations. By 1000, Hungary is recognized European kingdom with its own church hierarchy, minting its own coins, participating in European diplomatic networks. The transformation is remarkable. It would not have happened without Lechfeld forcing change. The Holy Lance that Otto allegedly carries into battle. The relic becomes part of imperial regalia, symbolizing divine sanction for Ottonian rule. Whether Otto actually carries it at Lechfeld is disputed. Primary sources mention it, but do not provide detailed description. Later tradition emphasizes the lance because it fits narrative of divine intervention. But the lance, real or symbolic, represents something important, the fusion of military power and religious authority that defines medieval European kingship. Otto is not just a successful general. He is God's chosen instrument. The lance proves it. After 962, the lance takes place among coronation insignia of holy Roman emperors. The story of him riding out to encourage soldiers while dressed in ecclesiastical robes, quoting the 23rd Psalm, resonates with Christian audiences. Gerhard writes the account decades later, but claims eyewitness authority because he served Ulrich starting around 952 or 955. Whether Ulrich actually fought in the battle is incorrect according to modern scholar Ulrich Schmid. But the defense of Augsburg is real. The city holds until Otto arrives. That is enough to make Ulrich a hero. His canonization in 993, first saint officially canonized by a pope, establishes him as major figure in German church history. His vita becomes a model for later hagiographies. His grave attracts pilgrims. His image appears in countless churches across Bavaria and Swabia. Germany is divided. The Cold War is beginning. Hungary is behind the Iron Curtain under Soviet control. But commemorations happen on both sides. In Germany, particularly Bavaria, the battle is celebrated as founding moment of German statehood. In Hungary, the response is more complex. General Ferenc Farkas delivers a speech at the millennial commemoration, according to Hungarian Conservative article. He brings up examples that prove sacrifices and heroic deeds of Hungarians in defense of Europe. Historical examples abound. King St. Ladislaus, chosen as leader of First Crusade. The siege of Belgrade in 1456, where John Hunyadi defends against Ottomans. The Battle of Mohacs in 1526. These examples reframe Hungarian history not as story of defeat, but as story of transformation into Christian warriors defending Europe. The speech tries to give Hungarians an honorable past, despite Lechfeld's shadow. The term masses of the East acquires completely new meaning, writes the Hungarian scholar. The commemoration of Lechfeld in 1955 becomes footnote compared to the revolution, but the historical connection remains. Hungarians in 1956 fighting Soviet tanks have their origin in the Magyar warriors, who terrorized Europe in the 10th century and then transformed into Christian kingdom that defended Europe from Ottomans in the 16th century. The arc of Hungarian history bends from nomadic raiders to Christian defenders. Lechfeld is the inflection point. Archaeological excavations along the Lech River near Augsburg in the 1990s and early 2000s uncover mass graves from the mid-10th century. Skeletal remains show trauma consistent with battle injuries, sword cuts, spear wounds, blunt force trauma to skulls. Some remains show evidence of execution, cervical vertebrae damage indicating hanging. Carbon dating places the remains in the mid-10th century. Location matches primary source descriptions of pursuit routes from the battlefield toward the Lech River crossings. The graves contain dozens of bodies buried hastily without ceremony in pits dug near the river. These are not honored dead. These are enemy dead disposed of quickly after slaughter. The archaeological evidence confirms Widekind's account. The pursuit was methodical. The killing was systematic. The bodies were dumped in mass graves near where they fell. The Lech River ran red for 3 days, not metaphorically, but literally, because thousands of bodies lay along its banks, in its waters, in shallow graves beside its floodplain. 10,000 knights destroyed 35,000 Magyars, not through single glorious charge, but through disciplined violence sustained over 72 hours until almost no one escaped. August 955, Lechfeld, where the raids ended and the bodies stayed.